This is controversial and I'm just gonna say it. I'm just like laughing at my past self being so oblivious to this. You just never hear parents talk about this. I did not realize until becoming a parent. I would say this is one of the biggest levers that changes so much in your life, your relationships, everything. We are 5 months and one-ish weeks with my first baby. There's so many things that I'm like, oh, I never realized this before having a baby. And now everything makes more sense why parents do this. Needing to change so much of your mindset, your habits, the way that you look at everything and operate. You essentially have to become a different version of yourself to not just survive, but thrive. Life is so different. I just can't emphasize that enough. And I know that's increasingly so. The more kids you have, the more different stages they go into, toddlerhood, teens, all the things. I really feel like today I'm supposed to talk about a couple things I'm always reflecting on. I'm so grateful I did XYZ. I'm so grateful for what my pre-baby self did, unknowingly setting myself up for better success now. Because even though we had such a hard newborn phase, like if you watch my other videos, you'll understand I was dying during the newborn trenches, okay? There were many moments I did not know if I would make it out. I was like, how do people do this? How do moms have kids, have multiple kids? I can't do this. Like, I was in a dark, dark place. Things significantly changed around the 3-month mark. Fast forward to 5 months. Oh my gosh, my brain, I feel like I have the most clarity I have probably ever had about what matters in life, about people, spirituality, marriage, family. It's hard to explain. I just feel like I have these super spidey senses. These are some things I've been seeing now with that clarity. Like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad we did these things. And I want to share with other soon-to-be parents or expecting parents or future parents, or maybe even first-time parents who you're like, why do things feel so hard? Like everything just feels so messy and chaotic. But I would use this analogy. I think these things I will talk about in this video, they're like pillars or like cornerstones to a foundation that you build a house on. And before you have a baby, it is the perfect time to work on these things, even if you're not married. Like honestly, like if you're not in a relationship, if you're single, like whatever season, like but before you have kids, work on these things. Like I think it's so easy for us to squander our like waiting seasons and just be like complaining and like focus on not having whatever it is that we desire in the future. But honestly, it is the prime time to enjoy your life, enjoy your season, because things will definitely change. You will lose a lot of the freedoms, the flexibility. You have so many blessings in any season that you're in, but it just depends on what you choose to focus on. I think the temptation is I want to get over this stage as soon as possible and get to the next stage. I just want to get married and have kids and do the stuff, but it's like there's a waiting season for a reason. I firmly believe, and I believe that God knows what we need to prepare and how he needs to mold us to be able to sustain the blessings that he wants to give us in the future. So I actually came up with an acronym, which is so amazing, right? My brain suddenly has the ability to make acronyms, and it's called CHAMP. How to be like a champ as a first-time parent. C is community. The village model that we have deviated from as a modern day society really hurts families. It really puts so much pressure and burden on the two-parent family, and especially if you're a single mom or single parent, single dad, whatever, it's hard. We literally were not meant to raise families isolated because of industrialization, technology, like so many conveniences of the modern day world, globalization. Like so many of us are all like separated now, like trying to do it on our own. We see pictures on social media, right? Like, oh, looks like these happy families are all thriving. What you don't see is the behind the scenes. They have families helping them, they have paid help, they have neighbors, friends, church community, so having community is so important. And I could not get over this. Even the first week postpartum, I was like, wow, this is what it means. This is why people say it takes a village, because I'm literally losing it. And we need help. Like we really need help. And who do we call? Who do we talk to? Who do we ask? Of course, there's always like more that you could desire and want. I want to do a separate video too, more in depth about how we have specifically built and cultivated like a village without having family nearby, without having consistent support or help, and like what that has looked like, because it has been a journey trying to figure that out. Because I was like, SOS, how do you do this? Like I literally was like begging parents for help and advice, losing my mind. Before you have a baby, this generation and future generations, you just like go to work, go home, or maybe you go to work, have a couple gym buddies or whatever whatever like you do as a hobby, and then you go home and you talk to friends online. It's so easy to be isolated from people and cut off from people and not even have like real life friends and people that you can just go to and like invite over. I think a lot of people unfortunately feel like that's not possible. Like that is an ideal I just can't even imagine, for myself. It is possible. If you find yourself not having people you can regularly talk to, regularly vent, process things, especially if you don't have parent friends, try to make some parent friends. Like now, you're going to need that advice, that help, even just empathy, even just like people to listen to you so that you're not crazy when things get hard when you have a kid in the future. So definitely invest in community, join a small group at your church. Even if you're not Christian, going to church helps you on a practical sense. It's like consistent people that you see. The whole purpose of church really is to get to know each other in our lives, like share life together. What I'm talking about is not just like going to a Sunday service and then like going and leaving and nobody really knows you, but like really getting plugged in to a community where people know your name, they know your life, what's going on, hey, how's this going, how's that going. That often comes through the form of a small group at your church. Regardless of your beliefs, I just see a vast difference in first-time moms, especially, or moms of multiples who are just like struggling, have nobody to talk to, have no help, have no support system. Dads, I'm talking to you too. Guys are even like notoriously worse at building relationships intentionally, and so if you are just like an island by yourself, it is going to be really hard and crushing weight to carry. H, champ, right? CH. H is health. I did not realize until becoming a parent how physically taxing. I'm just like laughing at my past self being so oblivious to this because I don't know, you just never hear parents talk about this. You're on the floor with them, playing with them, picking them up from the floor, picking them up from the crib, bending over, rocking them, soothing them in their crib. Things are dropping on the ground. You gotta clean up the floor, you gotta clean up the mess. There's a lot of physical activity. This is why parents are always looking for activities to do with their kids. If you didn't know, this is what I realized. Why do parents always want activities to do? I thought it was just for fun, but no, it's literally so that they can sleep better at night, so that the whole family can sleep better, because the kids need an outlet to get their energy out, especially if they're boys. They need to like go out and play and go on exercise, do sports, go to the zoo, go to the park, splash pad. All these activities require you as the parent to also go and participate, and you are chasing them around, you are bringing them to places, walking a lot. I was telling my husband earlier, like, and he agreed. He was like, yeah, you are like day and night different. Like the way I eat now, especially nutrition wise, the way I'm able to take my baby out in her stroller and it's not a big deal, versus before I went on like my health journey a few years before getting pregnant, which is incredible, like God's timing, how he prepared me for that. Because before that point I was eating whatever, like processed foods, sugary foods, dessert all the time, whatever I craved, eating at random times, not taking walks at all, feeling like, oh, it's so like, why would I take a walk? I slowly built, like over time, built habits to invest and prioritize in my health after many years neglecting my health, thinking, oh, that's like nice to have, but work is more important, getting stuff done is more important, health is just a nice to have. But no, like now as a parent, I see how health is literally one of the few key things that you must have to thrive as a parent, not just as a parent, but a grandparent, if you want to be around to see your grandkids. Otherwise, the window is so short. It's hard to travel to visit family. It's hard to do activities with your grandkids and your kids. That ties in with a separate topic that I will do a separate video on, which is waiting to have kids, which is very popular nowadays. We were in that camp as well. Like, we don't feel ready. Like, we're going to put it off and wait. But this is controversial, and I'm just going to say it. The longer you wait, like if you have the option right now, this is specifically to couples who are like, oh, we're going to have kids someday, but like right now I just want to focus on my career or whatever. And like, that's totally fine. But at the end of the day, we also have to be honest about like, what is going to be like my ready point? Because I will say there's no real ready point, and the longer you put it off, this physical health thing is gonna get even harder. Even like starting solids, the guidelines are to give your baby really healthy, nutritious, whole, clean foods that are not processed and full of added sugars and all these things that are not good for babies and also not good for people. And it's like so hard if you aren't conscious of that and don't have that habit, I guess, of being cognizant of what's going in your food and the ingredients you're purchasing and what you're buying. I'm just so grateful because I didn't do any of that until I went on my health journey after I had a health scare daycare. And so now transitioning to starting solids in a couple months, I'm not even that worried because it's already like what we basically eat. We just have to like repurpose it for her. So CHA. A is attunement. I had a hard time thinking of a word, so it just worked out that it happened to be an A to fill out the acronym. But attunement, the ability to observe what you're feeling internally, be curious about why am I feeling that way? Where is that coming from? What is that signaling? Self-therapy, like self-counseling of like, what do I need to address? How can I ask God to help me change my mindset around this? It is so important. I just can't. I think out of all of these CHAMP, I think attunement is one of the biggest ones. And other parents, I know, you know, I'm by no means perfect at this. I am just a regular human being who struggles with this all the time. But I will say, thank God, by God's grace, He's helped me come so far. Alex and I do emotional health coaching. We help people with this because it has played such a big part in our own lives. We're always also learning about this ourselves. And so it's a huge area in our lives where we intentionally like are learning how do we identify our feelings, label them, have self-compassion on ourselves, not judge ourselves for having these hard emotions, be kind to ourselves and get curious about like, what is the story I'm telling myself? What is the lie I'm believing? And all these things. And I mean, this is a whole world of itself. And if you haven't done any of that work, it is so important, not just for having a baby, because it literally like puts so much pressure on the two of you that you need to have those skills to communicate with each other and not blow up at each other, but also how you interact with yourself in terms of how you feel, how you express yourself. Like your baby is going to pick up on that as well. It's a game changer. And attunement actually helps you to be able to date healthily, to be able to find a healthy relationship, to be in a healthy marriage. Alex and I never learned the tools to talk about these different topics of money and sex and communication and all these things. Like, how do we work through it together as a team rather than be like what we've seen in our families of origins, like being quiet, being passive, being conflict avoidant? Because the more you ignore your feelings and push your issues aside, it just builds and builds and it'll explode. It gets harder the more you progress through these stages, going from dating to marriage, going from marriage to having kids, going from one kid to multiple kids. I would say this is one of the biggest levers that changes so much in your life, your relationships, everything. Even for like toddlerhood and tantrums, crying fits, testing boundaries, puberty. There's so many hurdles that require that skill of attunement. Of course, I'm not here to say like it's gonna be easy, because I'm sure it's gonna be hard and still challenging on many levels. And make sure you follow along, because I hope to document all of that as well as I'm learning it and experiencing it with our baby for the first time. But I just keep hearing from other parents, you know, seasons ahead. It's all about connection, all about self-regulation, all about creating a safe space for your child where they can communicate with you, where they can know that you're loving them regardless of what kind of antics they're doing, or if they're having a meltdown. Like, how do you not yell at them and just like force them to shut down and not feel safe around you? There's so many things that I feel like it just all comes down to connection. That's what I keep hearing over and over again, especially my husband. I'm so grateful. He's like always fighting for connection. And that's why it was so hard, honestly, like the first month postpartum, where it was so hard because neither of us were sleeping. I was in the trenches of postpartum depression and just like so much fog. I was like disconnected from myself, from everything. And I was just like so not used to that. It just really broke me. But after I came back to myself, we've kind of restarted trying to figure out what this connection looks like again, because we know it's so important for us to be connected and for ultimately us to pursue that with our child as well, so that she feels safe enough and hopefully won't act out as much. But we'll see. Kids are kids and you can't control them even if you do all the right things. M is marriage. I think the temptation that we see in our world is when you get married, you're like, oh great, like two people in love, or just like, you know, lovey-dovey. Maybe you run into some roadblocks here and there, but it's easy to just push these to the side and just like let it sit. You could tolerate it maybe, but I guess I kind of covered both of it. But it's like, if you don't work through those seemingly small bumps and you just brush it under the rug, it creates big problems later down the road. Let me try to think of an example. I think in marriage counseling, we've talked about, this is a big one, money. We've done a lot of work in marriage counseling to talk about where our money mindsets come from, what has shaped our relationship with money, what do we find hard, what are the tensions we have have about money? How do we meet each other where we're at and see each other with compassion rather than like, he needs to like do this or she needs to change this is not the right way, you need to do it my way, and you're not meeting what I want. Money and sex are like the two biggest points of contention of why couples fight. I'm so grateful we have done a lot of work. Again, we're not perfect at it, we're always learning how to get better at this, but I would say we have a lot more tools now to talk about money in a way that's not so like sensitive and triggering the way that it used to be when we were first dating, even when we were first married. And now that, you know, we have joint accounts and we are making joint decisions on what we spend our money on, what we choose to save and invest, like all these things, it's very emotional and it's very tied to your value system, your upbringing, your mindsets, so many deeply ingrained things that you're not conscious of. And so learning about how to be aware of that and aware of that for the other person, how to communicate about that, that's huge, because when you have a baby, there's a lot of unexpected costs. Bottles, pacifiers, clothes, swaddles, car seats, strollers. It's so worth to do the hard work of figuring out how to navigate those bumps together before having kids. It's not impossible to figure it out afterwards, but it is a lot harder because it's kind of like you're already skydiving. You've already jumped off the plane, so now you're trying to figure out like, how do we land? You would rather talk about it before jumping out the plane rather than being midair being like, okay, let's try to figure this out, and you're like losing it. Your baby becomes like the pressure test of your marriage, and if you don't have a good foundation for how you're going to deal with problems in your marriage, being a team together, committing to each other, you know, having that strong commitment, we're in this together. I can't even imagine honestly doing it without knowing that we're doing this together, and it's going to be hard, it's going to be confusing, but at least we have each other to like navigate this through. And even though we don't know what we're doing, we can talk about it and help each other and seek help, you know, if we need to. Okay, P, the last one is, so we talked about community. C is for community, H is for health, A is for attunement, M is for marriage. P is for paying for health. Oh my gosh, I'm like so passionate about this. There's so many people, and we used to be in this bucket. So I'm just talking to my past self. Okay, all of this is just me telling my past self what I wish I would have known. It's so easy, especially if you come from like an immigrant family, any kind of background or upbringing, that you have money mindsets of like scarcity. Like, we don't have enough, we can't afford that, we gotta save, we gotta only spend money on, you know, XYZ. And again, I'm not saying these things are bad. It's very wise to be mindful about what you spend on, but the trap that so many people, especially children of immigrant families, is we have this unspoken subconscious poverty mindset where we're not willing to spend money on professional help, lactation consultants, doulas, occupational therapy, pelvic floor therapy, therapy in general, postpartum therapy, marriage counseling, nutritional help. What I just listed is all the things that we have paid for after having a baby. Also before having a baby, right? Like the counseling, the coaching, these are things that we have invested in, and we notice so many people our age don't really understand why we pay for these things, because they're like, we don't really need it. Like, but I'm just telling you now, like, I am so grateful we not only spent the money to invest in those areas, but also practice the ability to spend money. It's a mindset shift to be able to invest in yourself. When we were starting our business as life and emotional health coaches, when we were starting our podcast too, it was a big, daunting endeavor. We had never done anything like it. There were a lot of mindset roadblocks. Talking to other people who have done similar things, all of them had coaches, had business coaches. And I was like, wow, like this is something that people don't talk about. You just see the success stories online. You just assume they figured it out on their own. No, they paid for coaches, they paid for mentors, they paid for masterminds, they paid for programs that help them with things. As a parent, there's so many resources now that can help you, especially because we are so isolated and separated from that village setting. I think in the past, you know, sadly, it was easier in a way of like, if you know, are sleep deprived and you can't function, at least you have all these other women and other moms living next door to you, across the street, or with you in the same like co-housing community, the village, to help you. And so it's not all on you. But now as a society, we've deviated from that, and now it's like, if you can't function because you're not sleeping, you're in trouble, because it's so hard to be present, to be healthy, take care of your baby, to play with your baby, interact with them. And on top of that, work. There's so many things that if you pay for specialists like baby sleep courses and classes and coaches, or occupational therapy to figure out why your baby is crying nonstop, screaming nonstop. That's what happened to us. Was we finally found an occupational therapist and we paid a few sessions. Thankfully insurance also helped. If we hadn't seen her, like, I don't know how much longer, how many more weeks or months we would have had this living nightmare of our baby constantly screaming in pain because of her reflux. I've talked to other parents, other first-time parents who are struggling so much with their baby not sleeping now that we're 5 months in, even though we had a really rough newborn phase with her reflux especially, and just like all the craziness, like postpartum depression, anxiety, and my hormones and brain fog and all that, the shock of everything changing. At least now, because we paid for baby sleep classes and resources, occupational therapy, postpartum therapy for me, pelvic floor therapy for me, we are in so much better place now versus if you don't invest in pelvic floor therapy. I hear from a lot of moms, they put it off way too long and then they still can't hold in their pee when they have to pee like 1 year, 2 years, 3 years down the line. It hurts to have sexual intercourse because there's still stuff down there that hasn't been addressed and healed. Same thing with therapy, like not working through the trauma and the shock and the emotions. You just put it off because you're not willing to pay for those things. And then same thing with the baby sleep stuff. That's what I was gonna say, is so many moms now are talking to me and I'm like more than happy to help. At the same time, I'm like, I suggested this resource to you so long ago, the Taking Care of Babies course and all these things, and you didn't pay for it. So like now obviously it's like the problem is getting worse, where your baby still can't sleep on their own. You can't do other things because you have to hold your baby to sleep all the time. And our baby now is almost 20 pounds. She's 18 pounds. She's on a 99th percentile for her height, 90 something percentile for her weight. She is heavy. Like holding her, rocking her would not be sustainable for me. I would be so exhausted. I just could not imagine doing that still at this stage. It's a short-term cost for long-term payout. It's just these levers that seem like little things, but it changes everything. Like everything I just mentioned, the community, your health, attunement, marriage, and paying for help, like the practice, the muscle of learning to pay for help. The last part of paying for help I forgot to mention, which is so important, is one of my top tips is investing in a doula, because I did not understand, like, why would I pay for a doula? You don't understand until you go through it how big of a difference that makes as a first-time mom. There's so many questions that come up, and so having a doula was such a good decision, and I thank God so much. He helped us connect with a great doula who was also a believer and just helped us through so much. We did not have the foresight because, again, we didn't hear the details of how hard postpartum can be. As we were like, oh yeah, we have a meal train, we took postpartum planning classes, we thought we were prepared, I had freezer meals, everything, but oh man. We are definitely investing in a postpartum doula next time around, if God willing, that's, if we have future kids, because I talked to other parents who invested in a postpartum doula or nanny, especially with overnight care so that they can sleep. It's a game changer. You don't realize how much you need it until you're like in the trenches, like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? Everyone's experience is different, but I will just definitely recommend it. And also there's this stigma. I've talked to so many like doulas and other moms and parents about it. Like there's like this shame of like paying for help. I think there's this sense of like, oh, so many people have done it without having help. Yeah, but like, why put yourself through misery and go through the misery that so many people do when you could literally shortcut your way to happiness and health and success and thriving, and give yourself and your family and your kids a way more positive experience. Like my mom, for example, I've talked about this. She spent the first 2 years not sleeping because she didn't have help. She didn't know about sleep stuff, like sleep training or gentle sleep training techniques. She had no idea about wake windows and overtiredness and all this stuff, and she was just winging it. She did not sleep more than 3 hours at a time for 2 years because I was always screaming, crying every time I woke up. She couldn't go out, she couldn't do things until like the end of the first year, and even at that point it was like so exhausting. I hope someday it gets normalized to have postpartum doulas, because it really does. And I'm sure once we have one in the future, I will come back and re-testify about this, but I can just see such a big difference in parents who had one versus us who didn't, and didn't know what we were doing, and like we're just struggling so hard as new parents. Like, we've never taken up care of a baby. What's going on? Is this gonna harm her? What do we do? Why is she doing this? How do we soothe her? So many questions. You might be wondering, oh, but we live in an age of AI and the internet. I can just look everything up. There's so many things you don't know. And until you run into them, and then you ask Google or you ask ChatGPT, and there's so many potential, it could be this, it could be that. Going back to community, it's so easy for us to be so self-reliant and be like, oh, I'll just Google things and like DoorDash things. And society has become so easy to just like self-isolate and be like self-reliant. I don't need other people. I don't want to bother people. I got this. But I'm just telling you now, as a new parent, it humbles you so much and makes you realize you need people. People who have been there, done that, will know, oh, you might be concerned about this. This is what I did. And oh, this might come ahead. This might be a problem you'll run into. This is what I did. And hearing from actual real life people makes such a big difference. Also to know that you're not alone. versus reading all these like hypothetical theories and rabbit holes and then just like being in this chaos in your own mind. You can go down the research rabbit hole forever. And that is coming from my own personal experience as someone who I'm pretty sure had postpartum anxiety around that and ADHD. It saves you so much time and energy and pain because that person has already gone through all the things that you don't need to go through if you're getting coached or helped by them. You can DIY all the things, piecemeal all the things, but in my opinion, and me and my husband, we've learned through experience, it is so worth it to invest in fast tracking your growth, because at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, you're saving money, but also you're spending so much energy, headache, time, stress, worry, being stuck where you are when you can literally like free yourself from that. And in terms of having a baby and just like financial anxiety that can creep up, if you have financial anxiety in general, it just compounds when you have kids, because you're like, oh shoot, my decisions, my finances, it really impacts this little creature, this human being that I'm responsible for. Also may or may not limit you in terms of, I know so many people who are like, it's too expensive to have kids, and so they just keep putting off having kids. There's so much to say about this topic. Your financial mindsets, your relationship with money, and how you can talk through these problems beforehand can help you tremendously, because potential to worry about money gets bigger. I hope that sheds a light on just like things to prepare and do now if you don't have a baby yet. And if you already have a baby and you're like, oh shoot, like I haven't even thought about this or that, I hope this gives you ideas for what might be worth investing in, working on, or seeking help about. And if anything, just to let you know, you're not alone, because we're always trying to grow and learn in all these different areas all the time too. It's a lifelong journey. I've realized it's a myth and an illusion to like have it all together and to be like a perfect person. You're never going to. All of this, the whole point of life is you're constantly growing. You're constantly getting humbled, constantly making mistakes, constantly realizing, wow, I need help. I need God. I need other people. And how can I grow? This is what I'm going to end on, but it's like so important. If you don't have like a malleable mindset in terms of where am I wrong? Let me learn from being wrong, then it's going to be so hard. I think that makes or breaks your experience as a parent, because I've seen parents who like they are resistant to change, or they don't know how to be kind to themselves, and they're just like, oh my gosh, I'm failing as a parent. I'm not made to be a parent, which is so sad because you miss out on enjoying your baby and enjoying your experience. Having a malleable mindset, kind of like wet clay, to know like, okay, what is it that I don't know? Let me be okay being wrong so that I can learn and grow. And it takes a lot of humility and self-awareness, which is huge in attunement and marriage and all the things I just mentioned. I feel like everything I mentioned in this video could be a separate video, and there's just like too many videos and no time to do them. So I'm trying to cram as much as I can into each video. But for mindset, okay, like one example is becoming a parent. You literally need to be okay not being productive, not getting things done the way that you used to. You make a plan and like nothing goes your way. Messes are everywhere. Everything's like halfway done. Like there's just so many things that you have to change. You have to like get used to it. You have to like chill out, and it's so hard to change your mindset for the better if you're resisting, if you're not malleable. Slowing down is a big one too. Like I'm literally like been playing and just reading to my child, and it's like so slow. Little things like this, you just feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not being productive if you think from that old mindset of like, I want to get a lot of stuff done and like make progress and blah blah blah. And it's like totally a different lens through which you view your life now, where like for me, I'm like spending time talking with, playing with, interacting with my baby. That is productive, even if you're not seeing results or seeing an immediate outcome, which is so counterintuitive and counter, everything that I used to think before having a baby. Is like being productive, getting this stuff done, seeing the results, seeing the outcomes of like doing the chores or doing these tasks or getting admin stuff or doing work. And parenthood really reveals to you if you feel uncomfortable with certain changes, like, oh, my old ways of thinking, why do I feel like I need to get stuck in that mindset or do a lot of things? Oh, is it because I'm finding a lot of my self-worth and significance and validation from other people seeing the work that I'm doing versus actually just doing the work of being a mom invisibly, where people can't see everything I'm doing, but my child is benefiting, God sees, and that's enough. And I know I'm doing my best that I can, even if I can't post this on LinkedIn for everyone to celebrate celebrate. Let me know if you relate to any of these areas and any questions you have about them as well. I'll try my best to answer in the comments. Follow along for more unfiltered, realistic, honest, first-time motherhood advice to my past self. See you guys later.